friends, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Amy, and I'm glad you decided to join me for chapter 3 of this book I wrote called Legends, Orbs of the Elements. It's going to be a good chapter. I hope everybody had an awesome weekend. I know I did. We celebrated both my aunt and my dad's birthday, and it was a good time. We had a cake and great food and all that good stuff. If you are interested in purchasing my book, I will be leaving all the fun details down below with some other fun information I'm going to share with you. So stick around for that. And without further delay, let's find out what Leon and Castilia are up to today. Chapter 3. Meanwhile, that same morning, Prince Nero was incredibly pleased. The one man who had survived the Legend's attack barely made it back to the fortress alive. When he did, Nero told his wizard and witch to heal the injured man, and they complied. The raven, who had also come yesterday, came back to be fed. The blackbird sat on the prince's chair as he fed the bird. The prince stared unblinkingly into the raven's eyes. It did not take long for Nero to read and hear all of what the raven had heard and had seen that day. The man came into the room as Nero was gently stroking his bird's glossy chest feathers. "Tell me everything," the prince said, and pointed to a wooden bench for the man to sit on. "The legend was, at first, excuse me for saying, but was a pretty face. I have fought many men in my time, great one, but she fought like one of them. There was no fear in her eyes. It seemed there was a hunger to kill." The raven flew off. Nero let his fingers nervously drop on his armrest. "Did the legend use magic?" he asked, trying to plan ahead in his mind for if something came up. "Yes, she used magic." Just then, the prince felt blood on his fingertips. He looked down, but there was none. He was distracted suddenly. He headed out of the room in a hurry. "You may leave now," he called out. Prince Nero entered a new room that had a high ceiling. In the center of the room was a huge glass ball. The ball was supported by large brass ravens. He ran his hand over the glass sphere. He stared into it. He saw a figure of a woman placing a sword on the shoulders of a young man. He could see them on horseback riding. He got an idea and left the room. He wore dark blue robes with a pattern of a raven in stars in silver. "Lincoln, Riva, the legend has sworn in a new hunter. Come with me. We have much work to do." Castilia and Leon had been riding for a long time. In that time, she had been telling him how she had become a legend. She had explained that her family was in Prince Nero's, fortress without him knowing it. At times, she paused and trailed off when it came to telling him about her mother and father. "You don't know if your older brother is alive? How can you live with it?" Leon asked as they rode side by side. "I guess I've always known we would eventually have to part ways. I guess something inside of me tells me he's all right, and I cannot assume he's dead until I see his dead body with my own eyes." She stopped here. "Now, enough about me. Tell me all that you know about the orbs of the elements," she said calmly. Leon adjusted his backpack straps and shifted a little in his saddle. "Well, now let me see. I know that there are five. Water, fire, land, air, and spirit," he said. His traveling companion nodded and encouraged him to continue. He looked at his horse. "I was taught that if you had one of them, They would make it easier to find the others, and with all of them, one can have ultimate power. Unimaginable power. Castilia shook her head. She switched hands of the reins and she looked at him. Do you know you have powers? Leon looked at her. What do you mean, powers? Castilia was opening her mouth to answer him when something deep inside of her told her to look up in the sky. Ravens. A dozen ravens came flying in their direction. Dark clouds began to come in from out of nowhere, and the wind picked up. Head for that group of trees, Castilia instructed with urgency in her voice. Leon Castilia made a side trip to a small group of trees close by. Once in the small shelter of trees, Castilia drew her sword, waiting for the birds to follow them. Leon still hadn't gotten used to having a sword, so he drew out his bow and arrows. They heard the call of the flock of birds. The call grew louder and louder, but the birds flew past the grove of trees in a hurry. Castilia found this odd. Prince Nero was smart, cunning, and calculating. Then it hit her like a mass of rubble. The hunter's family. Without warning, she took off out of the trees with the one goal in mind. Leon took off after her. A shrill of dismay cut through the air. The sound was from his mother. Castilia could see the house up ahead. She jumped off her horse and ran to attempt to assist in any way she could. Leon did the same. They entered the house. Leon found a strange sight. His mother was backed up in a corner, and 6 large ravens guarded her. His father was against the corner, and 6 large ravens. His father was up against another wall. He had a gash down the side of his temple and cuts down his arms. Stay where you are, or they'll kill June, the husband said. Castilia looked and saw June was slowly being choked to death by an unknown magical force. Leon looked at Castilia. They're just birds, see? He moved past her and tried to shoo them away. One bird turned and opened his beak to attack. No, don't, Castilia warned, and slapped his hand out of the way. She glared at the largest of the birds guarding John. She pointed her sword point at its beak and spoke to it. Birds, really? Do you always send your pets to do your work for you? What, you don't like to get your hands dirty, Prince Nero? The prince moved its head to the side, and then the bird opened its beak and spoke. I thought you would like the birds. I see you have a hunter with you. Let me make you a deal, Legend. If you let the hunter come with me, I will let you live, and I'll even throw in the family, too. What do you say? John tried to move. What do you say, Hunter? Do you want to go with the ravens to Prince Nero's fortress? Castilia said, looking at her new companion. Leon had come up to Castilia. I'd rather die 1,000 deaths of pain before I would go with you, Your Highness, he hissed coldly. The bird snapped its beak shut for a moment. Then the bird opened his beak again. Have it your way. June then slumped to the floor. Suddenly, all the birds swirled around John and attacked. Leon fired his arrow. It hit the bird, but didn't seem to injure it. Leon now drew his sword and began to attack the birds alongside Castilia. Blood and feathers were everywhere. The 2 new companions were in a losing battle. The birds all froze. A white figure of a man stood in front of the mother. The ravens were still defiant. The leader let out a call and then took to the sky. John collapsed to the floor. The white ghostly figure went outside. The ravens were still there. The figure held out his hand and concentrated his thoughts on the tree. The blackbirds were in. A fire suddenly lit, and with a start, the birds flew away in a hurry and panic. He came back in after putting the fire out the same way he had put it the same way he had put on the fire, the same way he had started the fire. Excuse me. The figure stood by his brother. Castilia was attending to a deep scratch in her she had received. Leon, hunter of the western plains, meet your twin brother, Trigger. Trigger looked a lot like Leon in his facial features. He smiled at his younger sibling. He smiled at Castilia. Trigger looked at how concerned Leon was about his parents. The figure of Trigger came to his mother, and the sun ran his translucent fingers over her head. She came to and stood slowly. Trigger did the same to his father. John eventually got up. Trigger faded away when Leon was now attending to his family. Castilia came outside. You know they will keep coming back. Do you think that just because you stop them, they will stop altogether? Stick with your mission, Legend, Trigger said to her as she sat down on the porch steps. Easy for you to say, she said under her breath. She noticed he didn't reply. Castilia turned and saw Leon in the doorway. Are you talking to my brother? He asked, a little jealous and defensive. Trigger now came next to Leon. He looked at him. Leon, when I died, I gave you some of my powers to you. One which is seeing spirits of those who and passed and loved. Although our mother and father love me, they cannot see me, but they don't need to see me. They just know. I also gave you the ability to sense where an orb might be. You will know when one is close. Leon's eyes filled with tears. I wish we could have been together more, the younger brother said, with sad regret in his voice. Listen, I must leave you now, Leon. Continue your task, my brother. With that, my brother, he was then gone again. That night, they sat at Leon's house. All was quiet. Are you upset that you came back to help my family? Leon asked as he offered her a hot refreshment. She took a long sip. I wouldn't say upset, but I could tell the other legends telling me that if you did not see the cruelty of the prince, you truly would not be able to clearly fulfill the task presented to you. Oh, by the way, my name's Castilia, but you can call me Legend. I don't mind. Leon looked into his cup. Castilia the Legend. It suits you. She smiled a small smile. Thank you. Tomorrow we will have to travel hard and fast. Come, come, Castilia. You can sleep in my bed tonight. I'll take my dad's chair by the hearth. No arguing. You've earned it. He led her to his room. Once she was in bed, he shut the door and curled up on his dad's. Excuse. Oh, I'm so sorry. Once she was in bed, he shut the door and curled up on his dad's chair and fell asleep. A shadowy figure silently stood watch over the home. So that is all the chapter for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to read this book on your own or read along with me, it can be found on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Apple iBooks, and lots of other places books are sold. Also, if you like this story and want to get some more fun, juicy details of characters' background and some of my writing process and how I created this world and characters and story, I have a Facebook page that is called Legends Orbs of the Elements. I wrote a piece about how I came up with the names of Castilia and Leon. So if you are interested in finding how I created their names, I would definitely go check that out. This week I'm going to be trying to put a new subject matter each week, or at least every other day. So you can find out more fun, juicy things about this book that I wrote. And I will also be working on and telling maybe some fun tidbits about the sequel to this book that I wrote, and that is called Legends 2 Rise of the Soul Collector. So again, if you want to find out more information about my second book, I have a TikTok account where I post some fun videos. I post sometimes snippets of that book, but I am currently working on that. But I sure hope you guys stick around for tomorrow. That will be chapter 4. If you like this video, please give it a big like, subscribe. Down in the comments down below, tell me what your favorite fantasy story is, or what your favorite fantasy character is. Again, I'd really love to know. So I will see you guys soon in my next video. Bye-bye for now.